Ladies and gentlemen, set 2 of Riftbound is saved. We're so back. Fiora hook is actually insane. It's very hard to play, even harder than Darius hook. It's very awkward, and I'm still kind of trying to learn it myself. But so far, I have had at least 50% win rate, even against Dravens. So, I mean, there's something here. There's some sauce here, and deck link is in the description. Make sure to give your opinions on the deck, because I want to hone this deck down to the last minute detail, like the set 1 hook. Enjoy the gameplay, enjoy the yapping, and be sure to try out the deck yourself. It feels so good to be playing hook again. My baby. But Fiora hook is so weird that it makes it very complicated, and it's because your Fiora champion can basically accelerate your units when you have, a weapon on board, or when you just buff your units to mighty. For example, you can accelerate sets, because when you use the set ability, the use a buff and get +8, it makes set become a 4 might unit. When you pay for the ability with the buff, so it becomes a 4 might unit, then it becomes an 8 might unit when it gets to +4. So this way you can, for example, accelerate set if you have a Fiora on board, which is a very powerful combo, but it requires you have a Fiora on board. But we still only need one 3-cost Fiora, because Matron can actually take a Fiora out of your trash, which is pretty cool. It's a pretty cool interaction. So yeah, Matron can take a Fiora out of your trash. So even if Fiora dies, you can play a Matron, and you can either take a Vanguard's Captain or a Fiora, depending on the situation. And Matron just is even more powerful with this version of the hook, and you don't need any accelerate units, because you can basically accelerate any unit you have. So it also makes the deck building way better. And there was really nothing much to talk about in the beginning of this game. We just play our 2-drops. The enemy plays a falling star, which I don't mind, because they recycle 2 runes for that, and I'm also Fiora, so when I finally get my units to become mighty, I'm just gonna be way ahead in runes in this game. So falling star is not very amazing against Fiora specifically, because I might just accelerate my runes very fast while the enemy is kind of stuck. Because if they use falling star, they basically sacrifice one turn of runes in that instance. So I'm fine with them using falling star, and now I can just play Fiora into Vanguard Captain and just look to be very aggressive with holding. And because they use the falling star, they're only at 5 runes, so I know they cannot, for example, accelerate a Darius, so they just play Darius as it is. And the falling star on previous turn really set the enemy back more than it set me back, which is pretty crazy. My hand is a little interesting here, to say the least. I decide to just conquer with the Fiora, because the reverse row is a very safe place to conquer. And now I just start equipping my sword, and when I equip my sword, my honest broker becomes mighty. I get a rune from my legend, and now I can hide my hidden blade. And even if I didn't find a yellow seal in this game, your legend just really enables you to be a little bit more aggressive with how much you spend power, how much you recycle your runes. So then if you have a seal on board, you can just get to 12 runes surprisingly quickly, which is amazing, because when you played Hook Darius, you were if you got to like 7 runes, you would be happy. So yeah, it's pretty fun. I've had games where I get to 12 runes if I have a seal on board, and my opponent is still at 6 runes. So you can accelerate this deck surprisingly fast. After hiding the hidden blade, my opponent just decides to take the reverse row, which kind of tells me that they don't have a hard bargain in hand, because if they had a hard bargain, they would just attack the battlefield I'm holding, and then just hard bargain my hidden blade. And this is a very slow game for Draven, which is very good for me, obviously. Then I threaten their Darius on the reverse row, and they don't pull the Darius back. So now I can use Death Grip on my Honest Broker to buff my Fiora, and my Honest Broker had the sword, so this buffs my Fiora by 5. I kill the honest broker and I get the gold from it. I draw a card from my death grip. My Fiora becomes 8 might and I get my rune from my Fiora legend because my Fiora became mighty. So might have to put 2 death grips in this deck. Honestly, it's very good. And the enemy just fight or flies my Fiora back. But I found a set, and with the set I can just play it down. It comes as 4 might, then it gets its buff, so it becomes mighty, and now I can accelerate my set with my Fiora ability on board and just instantly go in with an accelerated 8th might unit, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, might actually put 2 death grips in this deck. It's still hard to say. I haven't played too much, and it's very tough to kind of hone these pseudo aggro decks. It's very annoying, but the ability to kill your own units is very, very good with this deck. That's why you have baited hook, because you want to actually kill your unit to make sure you get to play your weapons more. Because if you have a weapon on unit, it's usually stuck on that unit until it dies. But now that you can choose when your units die by killing them with spells, etc., the weapons become infinitely better because you can then kill your unit that has the weapon. The weapon becomes kind of free, it goes into your base, and then you can equip the weapon to another unit. They play burn here, so I just hidden blade my own token to draw 2, and because of reverse row, my set leaves from their attack. So they basically kill only 4 might from my right battlefield because I obviously get the weapon back every time. So, and even though I was threatening 7 might, they still only kill 4 might of units because that's just how good the BF sword is. And then them hiding a card there is very, very annoying because if it is a switcheroo, I have to play around it somehow. So I attack with the set as 8 might, and either they let me kill 2 of their units or they reveal their hidden card. And if they don't reveal their hidden card, then I equip Fiora with a sword, they reveal their hidden card, and if it's a fight or flight, I can just first use my first mate and attack with Fiora again. So it's very important here that you don't buff set preemptively, because if it is the switcheroo, you lose the game. And it is the switcheroo, so now my set becomes 2 might and their unit becomes 8 might. If I had buffed my set with punch first instantly, their unit would have become 13 might and it would be impossible for me to win this game. I use punch first on set because I want to get rid of the draven, because the draven is at 6 might now, and if I attack again, draven can use their defend ability again and they would go to 8 might already. So I have to make sure to kill the draven, and I don't find a line here where I can win 100%, so I just have to gamble by equipping the sword to my honest broker. I can accelerate it with my Fiora champion. I can now use the battlefield to draw. I was testing this card. I took this card away from this deck after this game, but I wanted to see if this card works. It clearly didn't, so I have to go ahead and play baited hook to gamble. I hook the honest broker and I find a set and a harness dragon, which both will win me the game, because with harness dragon I can kill their 8 might unit. With set I can just accelerate set as an 8 might unit and win the game. So there was like a 90% chance I find something that will help me to win the game, just because I had the Fiora champion on board, because I can accelerate almost anything in my deck. So it's very balanced. It's very balanced. So the Fiora champion is very valuable, and you basically have 4 of those Fiora champions in your deck with your spectral matrons, so it's surprisingly stable. You almost always have the Fiora champion somewhere, either in your champion slot or in your thrash, and from your thrash you can play it with matron, etc. And when you're going second, if you don't have any good units to play instantly, you can just play your Fiora champion instantly to the board, just like I did so. And they play draven, and now I can just buff the Fiora. I attack their treasure hunter because I still have my death grip, and I want them to use something, because then I could use my death grip and make my Fiora mighty and get a draw, obviously I would kill my pit rookie off, but I would get a draw, I would get a rune, and if they use something, then it's a plus for me. I win the combat. I play baited hook because I get 2 runes back from the battlefield I just conquered, and now I can either hidden blade if I need to, or best case scenario is that I use death grip and make my Fiora mighty. They respect my hidden blade and they try to conquer the other battlefield, and I decide I will still use my death grip. It's just too valuable. It's basically 2 cost, get a rune, get a draw, and kill your own unit. And with sets in my hand and a hidden blade, I just want to get runes so I can accelerate my sets and I don't have to worry about, you know, de-ramping myself. Unfortunately, they use Falling Star again, which I don't mind because their start of the game wasn't that aggressive, so I don't really mind it. I can just develop my board. I hook my Honest Broker to gamble to find a Vanguard Captain. I just found a unsung hero. Unfortunately, I haven't found a weapon. They just draw their draven back and play a Forerunner. And by the way, I'm sorry about the cropping in this footage. I had made a mistake when I recorded, and you know, there's nothing I can really do, so I'm sorry about it. You'll just have to deal with it, I guess. I get both battlefields for free. I'm at 3 points, and I just played Rally the Troops. I still haven't seen a Vanguard Captain, and I mulliganed 2 at the start of the game. I have drawn many cards, so I'm pretty sure that there should be a Vanguard Captain pretty soon from my hook. So I played Rally the Troops. Unfortunately, I draw a Spectral Matron, which I don't want to draw. I want to find it from my hook, but it's fine. I hook my Unsung Hero, I find a Vanguard Captain, I get 3 buffs from my Rally the Troops. I play my second hook, I hook my Vanguard Captain to look for a Matron. I unfortunately only find another Vanguard Captain, but it's fine, because now I get even more buffs. And suddenly I got 5 buffs in 1 turn, and I get 2 runes up at the end of my turn because I just conquered the left battlefield. So I'm threatening a lot of stuff. I have 4 runes up, so I'm threatening kinda everything, and there's just no way they can attack this battlefield, because even if they had hard bargain right now, they would have to use it twice, which would make it so they wouldn't have a lot of energy to use their combat tricks anymore. They play a Thermo Beam on my 2 hooks, but it's fine. It does hurt a little bit, but it's fine because my hooks did their purpose, they did their job, and Thermo Beam costs 2 power, which is also a little bit bad for the enemy. So the only thing they do is Thermo Beam and conquer the zone warrants. Now I can just look to perma hold the left battlefield, take a Fiora out of my matron, so I threaten the right battlefield all the time with my set and with my set in hand. So I threaten the right battlefield by having the Fiora on my board, and it's important I don't use my set here because it's a surprise. It's very explosive, it's a surprise. I don't need to use it to hold. And with me not playing the set, I have runes for Hidden Blade and my Riposte. And I get to Riposte a Falling Star, which is very, very huge. I save my Fiora with the Riposte, and with the Riposte I buff Spectral Matron, which makes it mighty, and I get a rune from my legend. So it was very important that I didn't play my set, otherwise I wouldn't have had runes for Riposte. They draw their Forerunner back. I decide I will just sacrifice my Fiora to the right battlefield because I don't think I really need it here anymore. I just want to hold the left battlefield and I can just play everything there, set Fiora and hide my Hidden Blade, and they try to get through my battlefield with insane amounts of gear, but I can Hidden Blade, they equip the gear back, and they do thin out my board, but I have the forecast Fiora on board, so if I draw anything, basically anything that will give even a +1 might to my Fiora, I win the game. And I draw a Spectral Matron, and from the Spectral Matron I get a Pit Rookie. Pit Rookie buffs my Fiora to Mighty, and when this Fiora has Mighty, it gains ganking, and I just win the game. And the enemy rage quit. But this deck is very weird to play, but it does feel pretty good. It feels like the good old baited hook with even more choices. You have a ton of choices to accelerate, you have a ton of buffs, you even have a Defy in these colors, the Fiora signature spell. So it does feel very good. I just have to hone the deck better because it's, like I said, definitely not perfect. Here's another example against an Ezreal. I'm going first, and Trifarian Warcamp with this deck is even better than with the Darius because Warcamp makes all of your 4 might units 5 might, and just playing a 4 might unit to the Warcamp will instantly proc your Fiora Legend, which is very awesome. They're playing Sivir, they're playing like the Rasa game plan, but because I got a hold of the Warcamp, I just instantly win the game, which is the good old Hook story. They sabotage, but they take out my Call the Weak. They should have taken out my baited Hook, honestly. They take out my Call the Weak. I just play a baited Hook Vanguard Captain. I hook the Vanguard Captain. I only find an unsung hero, but this deck is like Ezreal's worst counter because it's so wide and aggressive. Ezreal has, rebukes, fighter flights, etc. But when you're going wide, Ezreal does struggle a lot. So there's not much they can do. They're just playing stuff. It's my turn. I conquer the right battlefield because they gave it for me for free. I discard 2 cards from the battlefield. I make it mighty to get my legend with my Pitruki. I baited hook my Pitruki. I find a Spectral Matron, and the game is just kinda over because Ezreal in these colors, because he's playing Sivir, don't even have access to Watcher, which just makes it insanely easy to play against. I play another baited hook and I find another Spectral Matron, and I even have a Spectral Matron in my hand. So, I mean, there's nothing much they can do. They play Akshan, which too little too late. My hooks kinda already did their damage. And what I have noticed is that if enemies play any high committal gear destruction, I just usually insta-win the game because my hooks already got me insane value. Then my hook gets even more value when the enemy has to use something on it. And that's a very big tempo swing. My enemy gets minus value while I have already got plus value. They have to spend their resources on their turn. And my next turn will be even stronger because I already got value from my hook and I have more units, while my enemy had to use their turn to kind of trying to stop my game plan. So it's like a plus for me when I get to use my hook and my enemy uses something on my hook. I just get to 6 points. I just decided to kill the Harnessed Dragon actually because they have so little amount of units that they're not even almost gonna be able to conquer the battlefields even if they get rid of my units. So I just play the Harnessed Dragon, and I didn't want to crush their soul by playing another Spectral Matron because that would have been very sad. They go everything on the right battlefield and they give up. So yeah, this is a very good counter to Ezreal just because of how wide it is. A single fighter flight won't basically do anything. And it's also a very good counter to gear heavy decks. So, for example, against Azir, which wants to play a ton of weapons, because Azir gets units from their legend, so they don't need to put units into their deck. Yeah, it's cute having one unit with a ton of weapons, but what if you could just have many units with a ton of weapons? And that's what this deck is all about. I had a pretty huge start. I had a 2-drop, a BF sword, and a seal. I forgot to record the start of the game, so sorry about that. And because I'm not really threatened by their deck, I just play hook in the Vanguard Captain. I could have played my Fiora, equipped BF sword on it, and accelerated it and conquer the battlefield back, but then their other Sand Soldier at base would get all the weapons next turn, and then they could attack back into my Fiora, etc. So I just decided to kind of develop my board. I'm gonna get behind in points, but I understand that their deck is very aggressive. It's even more aggressive than my deck, and on like turn 4, they just fall off insanely hard. And that's just because they have to recycle so much power with their weapons. So they're playing weapons, they get another Sand Soldier, but each time they equip a weapon, they have to recycle a rune, which is very bad for them, obviously. I conquer with my Vanguard Captain. I get to draw from the battlefield. I hook my Vanguard Captain, find a Harness Dragon, and this is the problem with the Azir deck, is that now that I kill their Sand Soldier, if they want to re-equip the gear, the weapons that the Sand Soldier just had, they once again have to recycle 2 runes. So each time you kill their Sand Soldier, they have to recycle more and more runes to kind of come back. And it's just this endless loop of their recycling runes, their Sand Soldier dies, they're recycling more runes until I'm like insanely ahead. And you can see the 1-cost gear in my hand. I did like it, but now I'm trying the 3-cost sword, which costs 1 power, and when you equip it, it costs 1 power and you have to kill your own unit. I had the Warmog's armor as a one-off, and I did like it. It's pretty good, actually. I just play my Fiora down, I equip my Fiora with both of the weapons, and I conquer the battlefield, and the battlefield effect says when you control this battlefield, the first non-token gear you play each turn costs 1 less. So now I can play my other hook for only 2, which is very good, but I still decide to play my Honest Broker, because if they want to now kill this Fiora, they have to recycle all of their runes to equip all of their weapons, and I get a gold, I get my weapons back, and next turn I can kill their Sand Soldier that just killed my Fiora, while they're at like 2 runes from recycling so much, and I just win the game because I'm 2 ahead in runes. And that's the power of a seal plus my Fiora Legend, is that I will always win if we're talking about a battle of recycling runes to get ahead. Because at some point you have recycled too many runes and you find yourself being behind, except when you're playing Fiora, you're recycling runes to get more runes back each turn, and if you have a seal on board, you can basically recycle 2 runes each turn and you don't lose any tempo, which is very insane. So I'm a big seal enjoyer and believer. I have my Spectral Matron in my hand. I can take back my Fiora anytime I want. I equip the Warmog's armor to my token to conquer the battlefield, so it becomes a 3 might, because when you conquer with the Warmog's armor you get a buff. Now I get to hook the 3 might token. I find a Fiora Victorious, and their Sand Soldier is very small, so it dies to only my Harness Dragon, except they played Emperor's Divide, which allows them to move their Sand Soldier back, but they're just delaying the inevitable at this point. I'm ahead in points. I get to play my hook for 2 energy now because I control the battlefield. I play my 4-cost Fiora, and I just play them all in base, because once again, if they want to kill my Harness Dragon, they have to recycle a rune instantly. They only have 1 unit on board, which won't do much. 1 unit on board basically dies to everything, and their Sand Soldiers are very weak on defense because their weapon says when you equip me, you get +3 for that turn, but after that the equipment only gives +1. So when they attack, they get a +3, but finally when they pass their turn, the equipment becomes a +1 only. So their Sand Soldiers are very small when they're defending, and I could just attack the Sand Soldier battlefield if I wanted to, but because I can't win this turn, I go for the hold, and I'm just gonna attack the Sand Soldier battlefield next turn. Holding with this deck is so good. It's way better than in Darius Hook, because your 4-cost Fioras have ganking when they're mighty. Your sets can be insta-accelerated if you have the other Fiora on board, and you can just suddenly attack with like 4 units from your other battlefield. You can draw back your sets, use their buff to make them not mighty, and then they become mighty when you use the buff, accelerate them again, attack, and then you can gank with the Fioras, and you can just do so many little tricks that you're always kind of in control of the deck if you get ahead. There can be some awkward hands, but if you do get a good hand, you get ahead, then it's very oppressive. They go to hold the other battlefield. I don't know why, because I'm ahead in points, but for fun, I just decide to attack there. You know, I should hold, but I just want to see like how strong this deck can be. So I just play Spectral Matron to take my other Fiora back, and now I can just start accelerating stuff. I make my Matron mighty, I get a rune from my Fiora legend. Now I can accelerate the Matron with the rune I just got. Slowly whittle down their units on their battlefield. They're tapped out, and my Fiora can gank. I have 3 weapons on my Fiora, and I just win the game. So this was a game where I kind of got everything. 2 gears, 3 weapons, 2 seals, 3 weapons, 2 baited hooks, and against a unit versus unit deck, that should just be insta game. And there wasn't really any point in the game where I felt like I was even close to losing. But I'm then gonna show you a game where I made some pretty big misplays. This was like the 3rd game with this deck, and it was a good learning experience. Well, first of all, my hand was pretty bad with a double set and a double punch first. So, but at least I can play my Fiora champion instantly. I'm going second. They didn't find a 2-drop, which is very good for me. Now I can play the Fiora to the reverse row. It's 100% safe there, which is also very good for me. But my hand is a little annoying. No seal, no hook, no weapon, and I also didn't find my early 2-drops at all. But like I said before, the reverse row is very good for me also, as it is for draven, because I can always buff set, go the reverse row, set gets his buff back from conquering. When they attack my set, I can take my set back, and etc. I can just keep repeating that. They play a falling star, and I death grip my Fiora to give my other Fiora +6. So now it's an 11 might unit on the Warcamp battlefield, and that's because my Fiora has perma ganking on the Warcamp because it's always a mighty unit. They conquer the set battlefield. I use my set ability again, go to conquer. They fight or flight my set, and I decide to not go for the reverse row because I don't want them to be able to get their unit back to their base. It's kind of stuck there right now, and I want to keep it that way. And because I have a punch first in hand, I don't equip the Warmox armor. They go to attack my Warcamp. I use punch first, they fight or flight my Fiora back, and I'm a little bit in trouble because of the overzealous fan, but I'm still ahead in points, so I'm not doing too bad. They're tapped out, which is also amazing for me. I play Rally the Troops, and this works in a very funny way. I play Rally the Troops, I play Spectral Matron, and the Rally the Troops buff goes instantly on the chain, and then Spectral Matron playing a unit from trash goes on the chain, and I play Fiora. So first the buff goes on the chain, then Fiora goes on the chain. And chain resolves in the opposite order. So now Fiora gets played first from trash, then the Rally the Troops resolves on my Spectral Matron. So Fiora actually sees the Spectral Matron getting mighty from Rally the Troops, which is pretty funny. And now I can accelerate my Spectral Matron. I threaten the Warcamp. I want them to use their overzealous fan. I have my punch first in hand, which gets rid of all the units in there, and their other unit is still stuck on the other battlefield. I have no reason to go there. I'm ahead in points, and their big guy, their biggest unit, is basically doing nothing right now. So I don't need to be... So I can just ignore the reverse row battlefield for now. And now this turn I made insane misplays. I wasn't familiar with this deck yet, so I didn't realize I can just, pull back set, use their buff, and accelerate the set again with my Fiora on board. So I moved everything back, which was such a bad play. I should have tried to hold, and next turn I can draw everything back, make them mighty, and attack with 3 units instantly to the left battlefield. But now I drew everything back because I was worried that I can't move my units. I can't conquer the left battlefield next turn if I want to, when in fact I could have, but I didn't know that yet. So now they just kill my Fiora off with the Darius, and I just lose the game instantly. Because they hide a card, and even if I make my sets very big, they're just gonna fight or flight them, or kinda do basically anything. I make my set 12 might, they make their board have like 20 might, while their overzealous fan can recall one of my units. and I could have maybe won this because they actually didn't have a fight or flight, but it was a friendly game, so it was more to learn about the deck. So I was playing more to learn about the deck, not to win. But yeah, that was a good example of how this deck can be played. I should have held the battlefield, and with the Fiora chosen champion on board, I can always draw back my sets, use their buffs to make them my deck again, attack with the set. So holding is very strong with this deck because you can accelerate and move your units pretty explosively, and this deck becomes very strange. You want to hold, but sometimes you don't want to hold. Sometimes you develop your board, play slower. Sometimes you play very explosively, and sometimes you have insane weapons and you just get too much value out of your weapons. Sometimes you just get too much value out of your sets, and you would think the baited hook is the core of the deck, but it's not. The actual core of the deck is the Fiora chosen champion that I have, and if you play the game right with the champion, you can control basically all the battlefields from anywhere, and that's what makes this deck strong. In Darius hook, you would have needed to have Darius in your deck, Vayne in your deck, Kai'Sa in your deck, all this acceleration in your deck, which was also a little bit expensive. But in this version of baited hook, you can play all the value units, the best units in these colors, and you can accelerate them. You don't need to play acceleration units, you can just play the best units and accelerate them, which is very huge. On top of that, you have insane value from weapons because you can kill your own units and keep re-equipping your weapons as you want to. While in other decks, your weapons would be stuck kinda in their unit that the weapon was equipped to. So there's a lot of synergies with this deck. The biggest problem of this deck is that you can only have 40 cards in your deck, which is the biggest counter of this deck basically, because I don't know what is valuable enough in the deck, because you have to kind of choose what is valuable enough for you to sacrifice a slot in your deck for. That's why I have taken out Call of the Glories, because I just find everything else more valuable. And at the same time, you can't have too many spells and gears because you also need units, because you're obviously playing baited hook, and if you don't have units to equip weapons to, then your weapons are useless. So it's a very hard deck to build, but it's strong, it's fun, and we're so back. We're so back. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.